So there is a legendary Kung Fu exercise, and there's a legend, a story that goes with it, and it's quite a simple standing posture. But I think this is probably the most efficient overall body conditioning exercise we can do to develop this elastic power. This is the legendary power of internal Kung Fu. But really, in all Kung Fu was meant to be internal Kung Fu, and even Tai Chi you can think of as another style of Kung Fu. This is all one and the same thing. We're trying to develop internal body power, internal body strength, and this elasticity comes from the tendons. So this is the posture here. Now the story, the legend goes that the guy wanted to learn some Kung Fu, so he goes to the Kung Fu master in the forest and says, "Please, master, will you teach me Kung Fu?" And a typical master, he doesn't want to bother, so the guy has to beg him and beg him, "Please, please teach me Kung Fu." So eventually he says, "Okay, I'll tell you what, you see that tree over there? If you can pull up that tree, I'll teach you Kung Fu." So he goes, "Okay," and he goes over and starts trying to uproot this tree. And of course it's impossible. But he doesn't give up, and every day he tries and tries and tries for years and years. So the exercise is called Embracing the Tree, and this is number 8 in my exercise series. But one day, 5 years later, finally the guy goes over to the tree. He grips the tree in just the right positioning. His body is just the right. He's managed to work out just the right structure for his body, and he can get the chi, the energy, and he pulls up the tree. He lifts up and managed to uproot the tree. And here I am doing it. And this is a 70 kg bag. It's quite heavy, but what I'm doing is using the whole body structure. I'm using the tendons and what I call structural isometrics to do this. So it's not so much muscular strength. I'm using my bone structure, holding my bone structure together. So this becomes easy. It's a pleasure. I'm not using one muscle of my spine. I'm using the whole body together. So the guy then, of course, he's so excited, he's uprooted the tree, he runs back to the master and says, "Master, now you can teach me Kung Fu. Look, I've uprooted the tree." And the master, of course, says to him, "Well, now you can pull up trees with your bare hands. You've learnt all the Kung Fu you need to know. So you don't need to be taught anything." So the master didn't have to bother in the end. But of course the moral of the story is, if you can develop this power, this elastic power, you've got some serious Kung Fu, and you can use this for anything you want to do. So this can be applied to all sorts of martial arts movements. So how do we do it? Well, I'm starting off with what I call the upright neutral stance. So I've basically got a neutral spine. There's a slight backward arch in the spine, but I'm keeping it as vertical as possible, stretching all the way up to the head, the crown of the head. I'm on the ball of the feet very slightly, so my knees are going over the toes, and it's basically a horse riding stance. And I've got to lift up the shoulders and elbows and the rib cage and pull them up and back. So I've got a nice stretch in the shoulders, and they're going backwards and upwards. And here the fingers are stretched apart and twisted. So I'm stretching the fingers apart, they're active, and twisting the little finger up, the thumb away. And this is creating a dynamic stretch all the way down my arms, right to the tips of my fingers. And I've got to take this stretch right to the back of the shoulders and the rib cage. So I lift up the rib cage, lift up the shoulders, pull them back, open up, expand, open the shoulders left and right. So I've got an expansion, twist the little fingers up and stretch the fingers apart. And here I'm also breathing, so I'm breathing into the back of the ribs. Now I've got to hold the core tight, so I pull in the belly, pull in the obliques, lift up the rib cage, sternum is tilted slightly up, and now I'm breathing deeply into the ribs. You could just about see it. My ribs are expanding left and right at the back. So the belly is moving slightly, but really I'm concentrating on expanding deep down to the back of the ribs. So I'm holding the TA muscle in, the navel towards the spine, the obliques in at the sides, and that's where you can do a little bit of twisting just to feel the obliques. And now what I'm doing is exercise number 3 in my series, bamboo swaying in the wind. I'm falling back, so I'm trying to get the right alignment in my spine, falling back and trying to catch myself. So I lean back with my upper body but sit down on a chair with my hips, and this helps to connect the hips and the shoulders. See, I've got to also get it in the hips. So here I'm squeezing the glutes and twisting the hips and feeling that twist go into the spine. It's also the spinal twist, exercise number 2. So once I get the hang of these hips and the shoulders, I've got to get a stretch and a dynamic tension in the joints, then I can start moving around. So I've got a stretch through the spine, holding in the core. I've got a stretch in my hips. I'm sinking down into the horse riding stance. The hips are open at the front, but also projected backwards like sitting on a chair. And I've got this dynamic stretch in my fingers and my arms, and I'm just moving around a little bit away from the position. You can see you're trying to practice the elasticity. Once you've got the hang of the basic embracing the tree position, then you can try moving in all these different directions but springing back to it. You see there I was going a bit lower, so more tension and more stretch in the hips. Well, it's tension, but it feels like a stretch. It's springy, bouncy. I'm on the ball of the feet as well, so I've got a spring in the ankles. So the fingers are stretched, but the ankles and the toes are also working. So the whole body's got to have this elastic stretch going through it. It comes from twisting and resisting. You twist the joints, but you resist against that twist. You'll feel them stretching, even though the arms and legs are bent. They feel like a stretch. It's an elastic power. Okay, I hope this made sense. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in one of these other videos.